With a ton of great people getting out to Gwent Challenger 5 this month, we at Team Aretuza thought it was an excellent opportunity to talk with some of those who work to make the event the best it could possibly be. So while the players were getting spruced up for their matches, we sat down with a few fine folks for a chat about them, their roles, and the event itself.
Hello and welcome to today's interview. And now I am joined by PANDA and we are at the CDPR headquarters in Warsaw. I'm very happy to be here and I hope you are as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, as always, Ryan.
Glad to hear that. First of all, this is one of the interview sets from Team Aretuza with the casters and the hosts and analysts of the tournament, because we thought that the players always get a lot of spotlight, which is very fair because they do a lot of hard work and a lot of preparation. But I was told that you also need to prepare a lot for the tournament. So do you have a specific strategy on how you prepare, or do you just, I heard you play some games with some professional players to learn a bit about their strategies, but do you have something like you only do for yourself?
Well, for this tournament, I think it was the first time we kind of had Team Aretuza and a lot of pro players kind of prepare us or help prepare us as well, which is a new thing, a very welcome thing, but hasn't happened before, as far as I remember. But I am very good friends with, Freddie, Game King, Adzikov, Demorcus, more recent, but also, so I get to always just, call them privately, ask about the meta, ask about, give me deck lists, etc. So it makes it a lot easier, of course, but for this tournament specifically, it was the first time we had kind of more organized prep, and it was helpful.
Yeah, so I heard that you actually played one season from rank 25 to pro rank, is that true?
It was this season, yeah.
This season?
So the past few months I've been doing other stuff. A second, there was a big break in the competitive scene, so obviously casters have to work and make money somehow. So I got into Artifact, I guess, a while back, and then Underlords more recently. So I've been, I guess, away from Gwent for a little while. But 2-3 weeks ago, came back, obviously very exciting because you come back to new meta, a new faction with Syndicate, a lot of new cards as well. So it was fun to try all that out. And yeah, I played I usually play kind of a lot of games to prepare well. But this time I had to rank up from 25 to 0. And then obviously the placements in Pro Ladder. So yeah, I ended up playing anywhere from 250 to 500 games when prepping for events.
That's still pretty good. That's a pretty good win rate if you consider that people try their best to get to pro rank just from rank 4 for a whole season, and you do it from 25 to pro rank. Not bad at all. And speaking of preparing for other games as well, so you've casted Artifact, you've casted Dota Underlords, right? And is that a very, very different style of casting when you are actually at the studio compared to Gwent?
Well, it was a challenge because both games were new. No one had ever, they just came out, so the first event for each of those games, I worked as talent, and there was nothing to lean back on and say, this is how other talent did it before. It's not like, a genre like shooters, for example. Artifact is a card game still, but it was a very unique card game. So it was very new to learn how to cast that well, but we worked with a studio called We Play. They were very, nice and very welcoming, and the talent I worked with was very good as well, with, kind of veterans of different games, like Suns fan from Dota, and Swim, of course, known in Gwent, and also worked with me in Artifact and Underlords. So it was pretty easy, but also challenging, which is always fun.
That's glad to hear. Yeah. You already mentioned that Gwent this time around has another faction added. So players will bring 4 out of 6 factions. Do you think that's going to be a big difference compared to 4 out of 5 factions? And also looking into the future, do you think they will have more factions, and how will that actually affect preparation and expecting opponents' deck lists and that kind of stuff?
I think it changes a lot because before you had 5 factions, you had 1 that wasn't being played. And overall, you could tell there's always been one faction that was, a bit under the general play level. You could tell it was not going to be brought, or it would be like a kind of weird tech choice to bring it. So you could almost always try and find a guaranteed strategy for targeting, for the most part. And with 6 factions, it's a lot harder to do that now because there are more options, so you can't guarantee your opponent's going to bring a certain leader or a certain archetype that you can target easily in a conquest matchup or in the format. So yeah, I think it's much more strategic, much more, the deck building process is more important now as well. And as to more factions being added, I think right now 6 is a good number. I think adding more factions would be, anytime soon would be maybe not a mistake, but maybe like an overload. I think 6 is a good number for now.
Okay, now I want to go back to the start of this whole tournament scene, and you've been there for quite a while now. You've experienced the amazing challenger at the castle, I would say, at the salt mines, right? And then the Skellige village and all that kind of stuff, which were amazing sets. So do you have a specific moment or just a general set that you think of as like the most amazing challenger, or also like the opens? Is there anything specific you would like to point out?
I think the challenger, just unique locations, it just makes it that much more special. I think the opens, after a while, we've done a lot of tournaments here in the studio, kind of becomes repetitive in a way, or kind of very familiar. Where the challenger is kind of a new experience. You're working as a caster, but you're also kind of on vacation in a castle, in like a medieval castle in the middle of Poland. It's very fun with like friends and a game you love, etc. So it's always very exciting. I think that was by far the best tournament to date. Challenger number 2 in the Moschna Castle was very exciting. We got to sleep in a castle, like the rooms were huge, like very tall ceilings. There was like cosplayers with very much in theme. So I think that was the best tournament to date in terms of, and also the play was very good with Coleman. It was his first tournament. He ended up upsetting Freddie Babes, dominated Life Coach in a 3-0 in the semifinals. So, I mean, overall, I think it just had so many great moments in terms of the setting, the gameplay. I don't remember what the meta was at the time too much, but I think it was overall just probably the most complete Gwent tournament to date.
When you started out playing video games, do you think this was something, or did you think during that time that was something you would like to do in the future, cast other people playing games?
Not exactly casting, but I did have a lot of interest in eSports. When I was 15 or so, I started uploading Call of Duty content to YouTube and doing gameplays when kind of the YouTube gaming started up. And I knew I wanted to do something related to that. I studied advertisement and marketing in the university, so I knew maybe like a social media role, a community manager role, like Aretuza, for example. And it's a degree that has a lot of openings in terms of like what you can do after it, like event management, etc. So that was the idea of studying that. But casting and even playing Gwent were two kind of coincidences. I played The Witcher. I liked Gwent. I tried out the multiplayer version. I'd never played really a strategy game at all. I was more of a shooter kind of guy. But I guess I was pretty good at it when I started. It felt fun. I was very competitive in any game I played, and it was a competitive game, so why not? And yeah, I ended up going to Life Coaches. I qualified to one of the Gwent Slam tournaments. I lost, unfortunately, but had the chance to cast, and then it kind of turned into all of this. So not exactly casting, but I knew I wanted to do something related to esports because it's a growing industry, and I loved video games, so why not?
Yeah, it's amazing. So, as you already pointed out, you've been casting different kinds of games. Is that something you want to do in the future as well? Can you see yourself like doing this until retirement? I mean, the esports scene is kind of new, even though it's been around for a while now, but especially the coming into the mainstream of things. So there are still a lot of, I would say, different kind of jobs in the esports scene that are being tested out, if it's something that will be stabilized. So for example, in the League of Legends scene, casters are moving away from the casting desk to team management, to analysis for teams, professional teams. Is that something you can see yourself doing for longer, or do you want to pivot away from it?
Yeah, I mean, being in front of the camera is fun. I like analyzing stuff, so I like having that role as a caster as well. And when I commit to a game and I play a game a lot, I want to just do everything related to that game. I want to play it, I want to talk about it, I want to share the game to other people, I want to teach people about it if I can. And that's always something I'm going to love doing, I think. But I'm also very interested in other roles. Like you said, I think it's still growing, and I think the business side of it is also very interesting. A lot of investment being poured into it. I think there's a lot of new opportunities that I could chase in the future. But that might be more long-term, more, I have to see where esports goes as an industry. But like Deficio, for example, in League of Legends, he moved on to kind of management role as well with Origin. So yeah, I'd definitely be interested. I also have a very, hard to explain, not a paternal role, but kind of, I like enabling people to do better, and I like helping someone else succeed in a way. Kind of like a father role maybe, or like a leadership role. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I think that would fit into that very well as well. So in the future, maybe not short term, but long term, definitely I have hopes to work in different facets of esports for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. So do you think that if you look at different kinds of esports, how much do you think you can actually copy from other esports, and how much do you think card games in general need to grow on their own. So one aspect would, for example, be the teams. Like in a game for like Call of Duty or League of Legends, you've always got multiple players playing for the same team in one game session. So in Gwent at the moment, we do have teams like TRG and Team Aretuza and Team Rankstar, but obviously the players have to prepare themselves for like their own deck lists. They do obviously talk to each other and help each other out, but in the end, it's you sitting there playing for the 100,000. So, do you think it's viable?
I think it's a unique ecosystem right now in Gwent because the prize pool for tournaments is quite large compared to other esports. It's on par with most esports in the tier 2 space, I think, in esports in general. But overall, so the community itself, I think, doesn't support things like big esport organizations. Like the compensation isn't quite there yet in terms of viewership, sponsorship, kind of the ad revenue you can get, the exposure you can get in the community itself on Twitch, for example. So I think that's still kind of, there's a disassociation between those two things. So it makes it so that some players, for example, I think Magpie, for example, he might have prepped with people in the CIS region, but he's still playing for a lot of money, and I think a lot more prep could go into that. The ratio isn't quite there yet, for example, for some players like him. Aretuza has done a better job, but it is still an organization that doesn't have the investment behind it yet. It's still kind of a new endemic organization to Gwent, but doesn't have that big financial support from behind.
Yeah.
I think there's still a big gap to close there. I think mobile might help with that, with more viewership, more player base in general. But right now, I think the Gwent community cannot support or doesn't have the tools in terms of viewership, et cetera, to support that kind of usual esports ecosystem with huge organizations, with huge salaries, with players getting salaried and more stability in their pursuit of playing professionally. So I think it still has to mend that gap at some point in the next year or two, hopefully, with season 2. But I think there is still a gap right now in Gwent.
So about 2-3 months ago, when the whole I would say scene was talking about win trading on ladder, and there was a big conversation about Game King and Pro Neo. You made a great Reddit post on the Gwent subreddit about what we can still look forward to in Gwent season or Master Season 1, and maybe the possibilities of a second season. So do you think now, with us being like on the second to last tournament this season, do you think the company should focus more on the esports scene now, maybe put more resources into that? Or do you think it's still in a state where you should focus on getting the game right first?
I think it depends, really. I mean, I'm obviously not a part of CDPR, so I can't talk in their from their perspective. But from what I see from the outside and from what I understand from working and following esports for a lot of years, is that esports is kind of like a marketing tool for a game, and if a game is not doing well, then the esports scene can't do well either. There's also budget concerns. You have to do, it has to be proportional, right? If the game is doing very well, and you can invest more. If a business is doing badly, then you can't invest as much, or it's not worth it to invest as much. So it's kind of proportional. I think Gwent Mobile release is going to be a big financial point in Gwent's history, I think. If it goes well, and more players come, more viewership comes, you have a bigger budget or a bigger reason to invest in the esports scene, because more people will watch it and it's more worth it. If 5 people are watching it, the budget's not going to be very good because it's not worth it. So I think the big concern is that, and I think there are ways to make the experience just as enjoyable, but make it more limited in budget. I think the players right now are treated very well compared to any other esport. They have, all the costs are covered to travel here. They get guaranteed money for qualifying, but it is in some ways taxing on the players because they've proven, the same players have been to so many tournaments, Tailbot, Adzikov, Demorcus, Freddy, and they still have had to grind games and games and games on ladder every month, whereas they've already proven they're good. So I think a system I proposed, I don't remember the exact details, but it was something like a league format where some players were grandfathered in or qualified into an online format league where it's all online, so you don't have to fly the players here. At least the league part is. You still have to cover the production costs of having the OBS stream and the casters remotely casting, etc. But overall, it makes it so that there's esports all the time. It's not just 1 month and then a 6-month break or a 3-month break. You have it every week to some extent. I made it so that you had qualifiers for players that wanted to qualify to tournaments and not ladder. You had the chance to as well if you're good enough. You have these cups that you can do at the end of the month to try and qualify. And for the league format, the pro players that have already proven over dozens of tournaments, LAN tournaments and online tournaments and months and months of pro ladder season that they're good at the game, they don't have to continue proving that every single month. It's already been proven. So unless you fall out of the Grandmaster League or whatever you want to call it, kind of like Hearthstone, and you have to jump back into that, unless you have to do that, you just play your league matches every week, and the rest of the time you can prepare privately you can test deck lists, you can prepare with your team, and you don't have to be grinding a ladder for kind of no reason. You've already proven you're a good player. So it's a format that I think would help fix many problems in terms of budget, in terms of players having more freedom to prepare privately and not having to get tired down from grinding ladder all the time. And it would still allow new players to challenge this scene every 3-month period. 2 players would come up from the tournament qualifiers and 4 players would come down, or whatever the number is, but there would be kind of a up and down of bad players or players that haven't been performing as well, dropping out of the league, and new players, challengers coming into the league as well. So it's not that exact format, but something like that could work, I think. We'll see what happens in Season 2. Of course, I don't know details of what will be happening. I don't really know any information at all at the moment that I can disclose at least, but it's going to be exciting, I think.
So what I'm getting is the impression that we could use a bit more consistency, maybe less variance, but also a bit more security for the people that have proven themselves, at the same time giving new competitors a chance to actually get in there without grinding like 500 games on the ladder. Right. Yeah, I'm really excited for the future of Gwent and esports in general. So speaking of the future, today's the quarterfinals. Tomorrow's semis and finals. Who do you expect to be in the finals and who's going to take it all?
I think Freddie has some very interesting tech choices. I think he always manages to find something that other players don't find. And well, I think this is going to come out after the tournament, so everyone would have seen it already, but I'm not going to say it out loud, obviously. But yeah, I think he has good chances to win it. I think he has the decks that might do it, and he's a good player, but he's also a lucky player. He's gotten very lucky in some tournaments, nothing against him, but it's it's cold hard fact.
It's part of the game.
But yeah, I think he has a good chance to do it. I think also the Team Aretuza players, Demorcus and Colomon, have had the best prep, and I think Colomon is the cleanest and, for me, smartest player in Gwent right now, so he also has a good chance, I think. But for me, Freddie is hopefully the winner. Also a very good friend of mine. So
yeah, all right. It's going to be an exciting tournament. You've all seen it, so you know a lot more than we do right now. But I thank you all so much for watching. This has been the last interview of our series, but there might be more in the future, so don't miss out. And I'll see you then. Thanks for coming.
no problem. My pleasure.
Cheers.